Hello, how are you doing tonight, guys? Starting a little late tonight. Wanted to share some information with you. My name is Brant, Brant. Last name is Hunt. My channel is Discerning What is True. Actually on YouTube right now, and then I'll share that information also on Facebook and on Odyssey. What we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be reading from this particular book, The Egyptian Miracle, Chapter 4. Ideas and Symbols. This is by Rene A. Schwaller de Lubicz. Um, I've shared many, actually, I've read probably at least two or three of his books already online. And what I'm doing is simply I read books for people then who cannot afford books or who don't have the money, that is. And I don't actually, I read the book simply because I want you to understand it. Meaning simply is I'm not going to do the work for you. In other words, you have to distinguish what you want to know. That is, you must listen intently and to have a desire for the truth. This is the reason why I read books. I've done that with other books I've done, shared many videos. I think over at least 400 or 500 videos I've shared. And I just prefer to do it that way. It's just easier for me, and it's also a way simply as here. Uh, you don't have to buy a book; you just listen to what I'm sharing. So we're going to be reading again. This is from a book by Rene Schroller, and again, like I said, the chapter's name is Chapter 4: Ideas, and Symbols. This is Chapter 4 of the Egyptian Miracle. The lack of philosophical foundations has given rise to analytical spirit. This analysis of ideas has forced the creation of new words, often borrowed from foreign languages. Such contributions, that is, have been proved insufficient. The same word is all too often used to express very different um, nuances of the same idea. Thus it is with the word symbol. That is by Lalande, Lalande, Boca, Boulaire, Bulaire, de la philosophical states. Symbol, from the Greek, sign of recognition, formed by the two halves of a broken object which are brought together. Later, any sign whatsoever that is a token, seal, insignia, or password, etc. In this case, a potshare, that is a symbol of the corresponding piece that is missing. A concrete object evokes the commentary part, and the idea evoked by the symbol will be the complement. This primitive meaning of the word symbol was eventually much broader and no longer corresponds to the intentions instilled in it by the Greeks. The London distinguishes that is, quote, whatever represents something else by virtue of a analogical correspondence, such as elements of a rigid, number one, elements of a rigid allegorism that is numerical, algebraic, or that is symbols. Two, any concrete sign evoking, that is, by a natural relationship, something absent or impossible to perceive, like the scepter, a symbol of royalty. B, coherent system of terms in which each one represents a element of another system. A symbol is a comparison in which we are given only the second term. A system of connected metaphors, that is, by Jules Lemaitre, Lemaitre. C, the formulary of orthodoxy, the symbol of Nicaea. So we are therefore incorrectly understood whenever we make use of the word symbol. First of all, what the symbol evokes is no longer complement but an analogy. This analogy can be a metaphor, which leaves the door open to conventionality. In point of fact, the original meaning of this word has to do with a replacement by complements or commentary terms. Definition A calls for an adjective conventionally. It defines a conventional symbol as the example shows. The sense of royalty that is attached to a scepter is conventionally, since the scepter can have a variety of forms. The paramedical by a natural relationship does not correct the idea of conventionality in the example given. The scepter has no natural relationship with royalty. If need be, we could give the word symbol, which, when used alone, a specific meaning that would fairly closely apply to the example given to Lalonde's dictionary under the noun symbolically. That is symbolic. These rites, these dogmas often hide ideas once reserved for a small number of initiatives. Their secret lies buried with them, yet it can be retrieved by those who study in depth the information, all kinds that survive concerning ancient beliefs and the ceremonies they prescribe. I would retain the name of symbolic given to this science, which proposes to discover what was connected under such diverse symbols. In the spirit of this definition, we are categorically symbolistic, but only on condition of reaching a more precise understanding of the sense of the word symbol. Indeed, in the quoted definition, a symbol is still understood in the sense of an emerald, of a image conventionally that can be conventionally. We require the truest meaning of the word, without which it will be absolutely impossible to realize the proposition formulated by Ampere, that is a secret which yet can be retrieved. I'm going to show you a little share here real quick. Chapter 4, piece of art, symbol. Let's see if we can find it real quick here for you guys. So he who has created himself, and Osiris Personus, holding the UAS scepter. The flux of the word, the vilifying sap. So this is in this particular book, you can see this as a symbol here in this particular book. Hope you can see it right now as I show it to you. Okay. So this is what it means simply. He who has created himself. A Osiris person is holding the Vajos scepter, the flux of the word, the vivifying sap. A conventionality chosen symbol, that is a figure, a sign, a object, a sound, is practically unable to break the link of a certain kinship between symbol and the idea it evokes. This is what Lalonde referred to when he inserts the condition by a natural relationship into E. von Bonema, that is proposition that, quote, the fish was originally the symbol for Christ because of the Greek word, end quote. Here, the image of fish replaced the letters of the Greek word and become a sign of recognition. In this interpretation of the symbol as conventional, the hidden meaning and implied natural relationship are in fact lost. The advent of Christianity with the processional entry of the vertical point into the Constellation of Pisces, the fish, you see the beginning of a new era. In the intuitive there, or esoteric aspect of sacred teachings, there resides in the symbol a deeper meaning than simply the conventional. Let us take an example from a crystalline system. Can it be said that the three equal axes, that is, set at right angles in three directions, are the symbol of the cube? The cube, ideally constructed on its axis, does not show them. It is reason that defines the cube by this reason system of axes. Consequently, we can thus symbolize the cube, but this then is a question of conventionality. Yet it is certain that there is nothing artificial in the representation of this axis system. The cube is indeed structured in this way. It grows evenly in the three spatial directions. It obeys the law of this system, although the latter does not in fact exist, as there are neither lines nor axes. The image, however, represents the function, that's the functions that arrange the molecules according to a system. Regular and equal growth in three spatial directions, because the idea of the cube, the system concretely represents by three equal lines, intersections at right angles becomes the symbol of the idea in a real sense and in a necessity and inevitable way. The conventional symbol of the cube, on the other hand, will be found in its factual representation. The following definition may therefore be drawn. The pure symbol is the concrete image of the idea in its abstract reality. Concretely, the symbol is the link between the idea and the conventional fact that it can naturally represent. Thereby, the symbol becomes Kabbalistic sign, exoterically, it compels interest in the direction of correction, or concretion, I should say, leaving the line of abstraction available to the intended seeker without underlining it in an obvious way. This line can have sufficient ramifications for uncertainties to arise, thus letting a certain amount of judgment intervene that will single out the initiative or the one destined to discover the true meaning. It's kind of basically what they're doing is simply is testing people and seeing who is at where they're supposed to be at the level. Okay, so certain symbols are put out, and then they ask such and such, and it means simply is that they weed out those who are not ready. Okay, and then also begin to help others to move forward, so to speak. Another example: the eagle is a symbol of John the Evangelist. No concrete relation can be found between the eagle and the evangelist, and therefore the literal meaning is saw, the description image of the qualities of this apostle. These qualities become the concrete aspect of the symbol, and the eagle becomes the abstraction. According to our definition, the symbol is the concrete image of an idea. Hence, it is in the eagle's nature that we must seek the reasons for their choice of symbol, and not in this evangelist qualities. He will be the final term of the conventional line of interpretation. The eagle, it is said, I should say, stares unblinkingly at the sun. Is this the reason for the choice? The eagle has a exceptionally keen eye. Is this the reason for the choice? The eagle inhabits the heights and its nest cling to steep cliffs. Is this the reason for the choice? The eagle is carnivorous, and when it has a choice between a woodchuck and a lamb, it chooses the lamb. Is there another Kabbalah between Agnus Dei and Ignis, Ignis? Is this the reason for the choice? We are not searching here for a solution to the enigma, but merely a demonstration that is the application of our definition. Let us examine another aspect of symbolism. Since the Romans, the eagle has been the symbol of its empire. Here, the concrete image prevails. The spread of the empire is foundation upon conquest, the highest domination, the ferocious eagle, towering glider, dweller of the highest summons, truly the living being soaring above all life in a fine image of empire. It dominates. Here, the conventional choice of the symbol asserts itself, and no one would search for the idea of which the eagle is image. But wouldn't the use of the symbol have been justified for monarchy, royalty? The qualities to be represented seem the same as for the concept of empire. There's certainly a deeper reason than the apparent reason or the image. In heredity, the choice of symbols was never based on mere fantasy. Heraldry, which has its sources in the same esoteric as does religion, shows the eagle pictured in various colors, that is, black, white, or red, single or double headed. Now, this figure is figure 8, and I'm just going to show you this particular picture here. Let me get to the right chapter. Okay, it's called the bee, a perfect model of the perfect symbol. In Egypt, the evolutionary route of our entire Mediterranean West, we see the equivalent of the eagle in the bee. The honeybee in general becomes the symbol of royalty. Honey is the subtlest, lightest part of the flower. The eagle is king of the air. The bee celebrates its wedding in the highest flight. The idea of height, air, and also of light contains in the image of eagle and bee is this, the point of view from which to seek the sense of idea, of which the ego in the instant is the concrete image, the pure symbol, allowing it to become the conventional symbol of the concept of empire. Unlike the very learned Ampere, we do not pretend to discover buried and hidden secrets. We simply wish to show a way of seeking a occulted meaning. That is occulted meaning, hidden meaning, mystery. In ancient inscriptions, a way conforming more accurately to the true sense of symbolism. Therefore, we must precisely define the meaning that we attribute to the word symbol, whose linking role of intermediacy between the idea and the concrete form we are here attempting to show. In the direction of abstractions forward the idea, the symbol is concrete and concretizing image. All the qualities and functions it contains must therefore be sought out in the direction of concreteness towards the object. This same symbol becomes conventional image in the spirit of the definition generally accepted today. It is interesting at this point to take an example of an anthropomorphic symbolism from Pharaonic myth and observe its transformation by Greco-Roman theology into a humanized myth. The revelation of Heliopolis it will be recalled, is the mysterious divine action of the schism of unity and none, that is the millennial likened to the primordial ocean, which coagulates into the first earth, incarcerating the invisible fire of Tum, T-U-M. This is the heavenly fire falling into earth, which in the mystery of Memphis takes the name Plot, P-T-A-H. This metaphysical fire produces its effects in nature by materializing the principle enumerated at Helobius, but not as yet manifested. The appearance of Tom implies the becoming of the three principles and the four essential qualities philosophically called the constituent elements of matter, but their corporation takes place only upon the appearance of the first, that is a triad, a plot, a sediment, and a nefertum, Nefertum, a active fire imprisoned within. Turn, that is the Tom, the first earth rising up out of none. Plot is representing in the Egyptian temple as, as holding the three aspects, the Di, the Ankh, and the Os, the three principles or characteristics of this fire. Let me show you this particular also artwork, or I should say symbol. We need to get a little bit more light here. This is it here at the bottom. So left here is the king wearing a blue headdress, offers Mat to Plot, Lord of Justice. The next is what we call right, the king wearing the diadem, offers 2 vases of milk to Selim, leaving one, a Plot, whose name is written with the sistrum of Hathor. The Plot is bounded like an impotent mummy. Indeed, he cannot exercise his power until he has been united by Selim, that is the female principle of Plot, who bears the wad, W-A-D-J, a scepter terminating in a blossoming pappus flower. It is she who will unbolt the lock. That is to say, dissolve the obstacle that rendered Plot's fire powerlessly. Plot is the creator of every living being of humanity and of everything that he has thought within his heart and pronounced with his tongue and his lips that have spoken the name of each thing. So say the writings of already, so says the writings. Already in the pyramid text, Plot is called chief of the workshop and creator of forms, and thus will he be the patron of all artisans. In Greek myth, Plot takes the name Hephaestus, and the ligature of the legs is replaced by an infirmity sustained, it seems, from birth. Hephaestus is lame, and in order to steady his uncertain gait, he forged 2 gold statues endowed with movement that support the steps of his thin legs. Whereas Plot is the heavenly fire falling into the earth. Greek myth wraps human garb around the reason that Hephaestus, that is the god of fire, was precipitated from heaven into earth. One day, Hera, Hera, jealous of her husband Zeus' infidelities, manifested her revolt with such fury that Zeus covered her with blows. Hephaestus, at the peril of his life, intervened on behalf of his brutalized mother, whereupon Zeus, irritated by his son, seized him by the foot and hurled him from the celestial regions. This story shows how the cosmic law expressed by Egyptian theology turns into an accident provoked by human feelings in the Greek version, that thereby distorting the teaching. So what he's trying to point out here is that somehow when the Greeks got a hold of this, they changed some things in the Greek version compared to what was said with the Egyptian. Okay, and that was something I said also last night, sharing about that, how the Greeks had already had made changes into the Egyptians. They came up with their own ideas of the definition, so to speak. It should be noted here that the two symbolic expressions attributed to Plot and Hephaestus, the same function of divine fire becoming within earth the ironsmith of the metallic mineral kingdom. The next section is called the idea. A distinction is to be made between Plato's notion of idea and the word idea, as it is used in contemporary philosophical language. Idea is general springing from conception. The concept comes first, and the concept itself can only be the result of previous acquired notions, be they simple or compound. In this sense, the concept is empirical. The experience, concept, idea, such is the sequence, yet experience is meaningless without the consciousness that records the represented notion, which in turn is impossible without conception. Immanent in every being is a faculty of numbering that in a priority knowledge of number. The very fact that distinguishing between the I and the other is a enunciation. Without this infinite knowledge, there would be nothing in nothing in nature. All elements would be coming in without order. A mineral body reacts in relation to another mineral body. You see, this chemical reaction in life or is life, and discrimination, a comparison, a enumeration, that is, clinging to a object in order to rise. The plant counts and distinguishes, but none of the notions involved are recorded. Recorded. The recording faculty appears only when the separate organ is self the result of a dualization or dualizing ascertainment as or perception. Climbing the plant follows its need, which is the need of contact for support. Okay, so he's talking about a plant here growing up. The need to grow upward against the law of gravity. So it's working against gravity, you see. Were it not so, there would be nothing to keep it from creeping along the ground, you see. The tendencies of beings are first forms of intelligence. See, this is the part he's talking about intelligence even with a plant. We take it for granted when reality is doing something what it's supposed to be doing, which is going upward, but yet it needs support as it goes up, you see. Inscription of experience can only come about with the animal, the organized being, that is. The animal represents the first state of dualized perception, centering the characteristics, tendencies, and the organ that responds to its satisfaction. The need for the cerebral organ to coordinate, that is, perceptions, comes from the organic complex, acquired knowledge that has become immanent as a priority knowledge form in this fashion. And such knowledge is but the organic memory of nature, constituting the human being who comprises the mineral, plant, and animal worlds. As man in nature, ultimately a product, is useless to try to analyze the play of intelligence, concepts, and ideas without considering the living relationship between man and nature. This nature is entirely within him, evidentized by the I. It becomes the denominator placed in confrontation with nature. This dualization or schism of nature accounts for all intelligence, all separate phenomenon. Consciousness and idea have no need whatsoever of the cerebral organ, but are part of what the ancients call intelligence of the heart, the natural relation between nature within us and the same nature outside of us. Strictly speaking, consciousness is the limit of need or of tendency. When divine finds its support, it seeks no further. Okay, he's going back to the plant. It is conscious of having responded to its need, to its tendency. Consciousness exists when our senses, which are but specific tendencies, find the satisfaction demands by such a tendency. This tendency, that is, this need, which makes for consciousness, is idea. Form without substance. This tendency to grow equally in three specific directions of space is the idea of the cube. Our relationship to these natural realities, however, is of another nature and is double in aspect. The rapport, that is the rapport, established by the severed organ, and the one established by a function having its organism in the inner ear and allowing the transposition, the transcription of intelligence of the heart into cerebral intelligence. Cerebral intelligence is two dimensions. Intelligence of the heart is spatial. The concept, the conception, is situated in spatial intelligence. We are able to conceive the spherical spiral, but we can comprehend the spiral only in its plane surface aspect. And in general, we can understand volume only as a section, the projection into a plane. Feelings can be conceived, but are grasped only by their concrete effects. We can conceive pure idea, but we can comprehend a idea only as form defined in substance, as the form of materiality. These considerations lead to the following definitions. There are two kinds of intelligence. One is a priority knowledge, that is an imminent experience, the source of pure reason, which we refer to as intelligence of the heart or spatial intelligence, conceptions, and able to visualize idea. The other is a cerebral intelligence, that is a two-dimensional, empirical, the source of reasoning or of coordinating inscribed notions as intelligence that can comprehend and materialize ideas. This philosophical approach to the components of intelligence is mystical by its insistence on the interdependency of all things, while discontinuality in matter by individualization through form is a fact. There also exists a undeniable continuity both through a energy of constitution and through the general process of material genesis. This proposal classification would lessen divergency in the accreditation of words such as occupy, us here, intelligence, concept, and conception and idea. There exists a marked difference between cerebral comprehension and spatial intelligence, between the rational intelligence of St. Thomas Aquinas. Pure reason is inborn knowledge, situated within spatial intelligence and necessarily transcriptions by the cerebral cortex. This task is met by a mechanism of understanding we shall call intellect. The ancients accurately determined this passage from spatial intelligence to comprehension vision, and without such detailed precision, it's quite impossible to define this understanding intellect. Although we must be satisfied here with curiosity, that is, the curious definitions, it is important that some clarity be shed on the meaning of instinct and intuition. To us, instinct is an inborn knowledge of organic consciousness, free from interference by the faculties of coordination and reasoning. It is instinct, for example, that leads the animal to choose the healing plant and avoid the poisonous one. Instinct, again, makes it flee the sight of an imminent avalanche. Once the cerebral cortex interferes, instinct apotropes unless the intellect is cultivated. Instinct inhabits man as it does all animals, and in him instinct is situated in the spatial intelligence of the heart. It can be transposed if it can gain consciousness and can thereby reach the level of intuition. We can say accordingly that there is nothing to be learned but the consciousness of what is within us. To this end, intelligence is not needed. This is the task of the intellect of understanding. What this understanding tells us need not be expressed. In fact, there lies in the search for expression the danger of reduction to mere comprehension, a reliance on this double dimension that only strangles us from spatial intelligence. Unless we are resigned to contemplation, to meditation, devoid of thought, need remains. Not a formulation, but a fixing what the understanding intellect reveals. Sufficient to this task is the image, which thus becomes the most direct and primitive form of writing. It can be read without the use of language and conforms to the simplest expression of intuition, the intellect's understanding of spatial intelligence. The image does not speak to the animal, nor does it speak to many human groups that by degeneration either do not possess or have squandered the gift of intellect. This gift can be lost either by a return to the animal instinct or by a smothering through the reasoning intelligence of the cerebral cortex, to which the image thus represents merely a conventional system. A conventional symbol. Sorry about that. Every specific natural thing is individualization of form within undefined substance, idea and form collides. Individualization, being the symbol of the idea, is concretization. As we have said, the definition of an axis system symbolizes the idea of the cube. This idea of cube is the tendency, the need for equal growth, or for a systematic atomic arrangement into the three specific directions of space. The material cube will be the object which has a conventional symbol. The image that represents the cube is an intuitive script for our intellect understanding of the cubic tendencies. The image is two dimensions. The cube, however, is volume, and forms in space can be represented only by conventional devices as far as the image is concerned. Our conception of cubit volume is transcribed into comprehension, into the reasoning and the coordination intelligence of the cerebral cortex. Intelligence of qualities such as the great, the beautiful, the good, coloration, joy, makes for emotion. The intellect can transcribe emotion only by quantitative comparisons with opposites. A joy in itself is only a satisfaction. A color in itself is neither red nor green nor anything else, and yet it is active. A thing in itself is neither beautiful nor ugly, small nor large, good nor bad, and yet without resorting to comparisons, it can be felt as such. The phantom quality demands a transposition of spatial intelligence into comprehensionism. A transpositional accomplished only by a quantitative, sensory, perceptive comparisons, only transcribed in the manner that is. Quality can be symbolized only conventionally. There is no idea of quality, but idea itself is quality, tendency, and need. Qualities fuse into idea and become separated only by their individuality into material form. The formal principle has no specification. It is the concretizing force acting upon the substance. This materialization follows a descending path from pure energy to matter, and the stages are quality specifications or individualization that become idea of all concrete form. Symbolic. The symbolic is to understand not only a method or mode of transcription of intuitive vision by the use of images, but also as a mode of investigation at a higher state of intellectualism, where we observe the natural phenomenon itself as symbol. This aspect of the symbol within the symbology draws our particular interest at this moment in human history. Indeed, at this solemn time when our world is reaching the limits of rational possibilities, people concerned with the future seek an opening that could provide a rescue for thinking man. The preoccupation with rational thinking already exists. Is such a assess of rationality possible in the course offering by a relativistic theory, a non-Euclidean geometry of curves and spaces of an abstract art. All this remains is a progression in the same direction by the same means. it amounts to pushing back the limits. It does not go beyond them. It's true that science denies this disquietude. It continues to be satisfied with the forecast of a possible reduction of all problems into a final synthesis. In this, Einstein's faith was great enough to make him persistently refuse the uncertainty principle formulated by Heisenberg. He departed this world, he departed this world convinced that each and every question would one day be answered logically and rationally. It's certainly disturbing for the rational Western mentality to admit that such might not be the case to his analytical way of thinking. This would be a step backward into philosophy whose sources are intuitive and unknown to the rational mind. Eventually, it opens the way to the lowest mysticism. Yet in today's human world, an elite is undeniably manifestation itself, distinguished by an imperative call to a higher consciousness and a will to participate in a knowledge that goes beyond learned rationality. It is two cases to argue that the duty of the scientist is to put his faith in his work using standard means, even if they are limited, and that it is the duty of the philosopher to seek the path that could, if not conquest, at least push the limitations back as far as possible. According to my faith, this is a concession that should no longer be made in the quest for knowledge. At the risk of seemingly utopian, the seeker must dare to accept a position clearly congruent with the aim he sets himself. This does not mean a opposition to what is, but the search for a way in the desert with the only means offered by this desert, a earth and a sky. The contemporary man, whatever his imperfections or perfections are, represents for us his ultimate product that is organically alive in the universe. Proof of the existence of more perfect beings, being closer to an immutable reality, is offered by every great epoch of the past. Whatever the skepticism of materialists, they must deter to the fact that all beings observable on our earth have something less than we have, and thus we must conclude that all aspects of nature contributed to the becoming of the human being. The fundamental concept underlying all traditional gnosis is not a microcosm side by side with a macrocosm, but a universe incarnated in man, anthropos. We are able to know by means of our senses, our mind, and our intuition only what is immanent in us. This is the being of which we are conscious only in certain privileged moments when consciousness of such inborn knowledge can be awakened. Only through this questionable anthropocosmos reality can there be symbol. All natural facts, all observable phenomenon can become symbols, but only if they find their response, even if the term symbol is taken in the usual acceptance of concrete means of recognition. It signifies a summons for an abstract counterpart. It is possible to be symbolist according to several meanings of the term. However, if we want to assign it to the symbology, the value of a directive doctrine, and avoid that symbolism be taken as a mere point of view open to all kinds of subjective, that is not to say fanciful, interpretations, the term symbology must be given a clear and strict status. Whatever may be perceived by the mystic in his ecstasy belongs to him in an absolutely personal way. He can transcribe it only with images revealing nothing to the intelligence of our cerebral cortex, which appreciates tangible phenomenon alone. Ecstasy can give certitude only to the exceptional being thus entranced. This rapture means a transport of the being beyond the restrictive limits of our corporative and cerebral world. Ecstasy is an end in itself, and following the rapture, the ecstasy being may become an apostle with his affirmations appealing to faith. This is not a a priority knowledge, the knowledge of spatial intelligence of the heart. For the latter demands that the knower maintain a link with our tangible world. Knowledge is to liberate the individual from restrictive limits while maintaining contact with the perceptive and ponderant universe. Such knowledge is a mean term between what is undefinable and spiritual and what is finite and perceptible. This requires of the knower, whom we may call a sage, a tangible means of transmission retaining a character of universality of the person at whom this means is directed. It requires a intelligent faculty equal to this means. The means can only be formed, be it number, color, sound, a two-dimensional image of a or a volume. The essential condition, however, is that the form has no conventional name, but the latter immediately restricts the universality of the form through the particular attribution imposed upon it. What then are our means of intelligence? I have said that every fact, every phenomenon that our senses and mental faculties can grasp. Hence, every well-defined notion can be a symbol. Inversely, it follows from this proposition that anything which can in its any way be objectified and hence is sensory perceptible can only be symbol, a concrete expression calling for an idea is an abstract counterpart. Accordingly, the counterpart can never be objectified as it would then itself be but a summary symbol. The phenomenon becomes symbol only when it evokes in us not something, but a state of being. Livable but impossible to describe. What does this mean? Nothing that is mentally conceived is purely abstract. Any abstraction is necessarily wrapped in concrete values. Otherwise, it would be but a word without significance for the mind. That is intuition, on the other hand, or it is enveloped in concrete notions. That is direct intelligence, a moment at which we are living, inborn a priority knowledge. Besides our mental faculties, we have set another intelligent source, which is a psychic fusion of being with, and the source of everything we feel as emotion. The physical can be penetrated into the psychical, a state outside of our physical time and space. This is why I speak of fusion, Fusion, through the psyche. The more direct means for this fusion is emotion. We live emotion. We can comprehend its material cause. We can comprehend its material consequences. But as for emotion itself, we can only live it, feel it. We cannot comprehend it. Yet beyond our psychic intelligence, there is still another faculty that is the true source of our awareness of harmony. It is, in fact, to this sense of synthesis that the symbolicism appeals. By senses, we usually understand a assembly of elements coordinated to form a new totality. I attribute another meaning to the word synthesis, the sense of virtuality. Thus, for example, I consider that the seed of an apple is the synthesis, the virtuality of the apple tree. Through its vegetation, the apple tree that stems from that seed will, on the other hand, be an analysis of that synthesis. The latter can then be conceived by the mind as a composite group under the name apple tree. All seed is the synthesis of what it will produce. And what it produces is the concrete symbol of this virtual senses evoked by its concrete manifestation. This evoked virtuality is the true response, the abstract counterpart of the concrete symbol. This example is notable in that it defines exactly the true significance of symbol and eliminates confusion with terms such as emerald and other arbitrary figurations that lack all philosophical value. The word synthesis should be clearly conceived as the sense of synthesis, thus equilibrates, I should say, and guides all our behavior. It makes it possible for us to walk, for without realizing it psychologically, by going forward, we know what lies behind. Had we not had we not within us the synthesis knowledge of directions, we would be unable to move. In the absence of the sense of synthesis, we could never act. We could never see anything, notwithstanding our visual faculties, because we would be unable to distinguish anything among all that is luminous. We would never be able to hear anything, notwithstanding our auditory mechanism, because we would be unable to isolate what we wanted to hear from all the different noises around us. All would be but a chaos of noise. The intelligence of the cerebral cortex in relation to the sense of synthesis can be compared to growth and vegetation, which are the analysis proceeding from the senses of the seed. A sound becomes musical tone only through our sense of synthesis, which establishes the relationship of that sound with all the other sounds we do not hear. This is not a question of memory, as memory is able to act only in one direction at a time. The brain is a dissector, a chemist, a mechanic. It belongs to the realm of fixed things, arrested within a limit, the course of life. It is this sense of synthesis that the Pharaonic sages called intelligence of the heart. Knowledge and their entire science were based on the divine faculty in man. This is why they were able to be more positive than we are. They were able to see by symbols and even in their writings to express themselves only by means of symbols. Their writings, nevertheless, although entirely imagined and symbolic, offers a grammatic form as well, which means that it is readable in a spoken language. Yet the true high-accuracy sense is read but cannot be expressed in words. The high-accuracy symbology is in itself a writing and not a language. It is an essence, and through our sense of synthesis, the symbol within the symbology speaks to a inborn knowledge. A stone, for example, is a symbol for us only because we can live or evoke its hardness and mineral nature, characteristics that are then felt emotionally and later submitted to a mental analysis. It is this evocation, the stone specifically, which forms the symbol teaching and not in emotional and analytical consequences. The latter are a reduction of a transcendent state to a quantitative one, as we are by nature always inclined to such a reduction. The reading of a symbology hold on a second here. Let's see where I was at. Oh, as we are by nature always inclined to such a reduction, the reading of a symbology demands a education. Next section is called example of a synthesis symbol. As an illustration, let us consider the sign SA, SA, which is found in innumerable figurations within a phrase inscribed vertically behind the officiating king. The group of signs reads May, protection, SA, SA, surround thee. So this is figure 10, here at the corner here. And this is a man crossing the wings of birds just caught in his net. The SA sign is seen between the sack and the gore. That is the tomb of Ti. Why ascribe the meaning of protection to the Sa sign, amulet of Sa, the back? And what precisely does that sign represent? The dictionary tells us that it is Sa is a shepherd's shelter made of straw matting. And study of this object, which figures frequently in the conventional name scene of private life, has led to the following definition. Sa is an object in which it's recognized the rolled up coverlet the journeying shepherd wears slung over his shoulder. This interpretation is evoked particularly by the representation of shepherds leading their flocks across the river. They can indeed be seen bearing staffs from is a which a gore is suspended, and with their rolled up couplets, the saw slung over their shoulders. But let us walk through the tombs in search of various representation of this sign and not rest satisfied with an explanation that at first sight seems evident. Whether shelter of thatch or a blanket, the idea of protection in the saw sign stands out clearly, so that on the surface the meaning of this symbol seems litigated. Here we see a naked man squatting, as in figure 10, crossing the wings of a captured bird to prevent them from escaping. Close by, he has set down his hamper, his gore, a bag for supplies, and his bedroll, saw. A short distance from there, close to two other men occupy in making a humming net. I lost my place here. Okay, here we are. This shows that they are not only the equipment of shepherds alone. It should also be noted that these men are not wearing these objects, yet the classical interpretation remains perfectly plausible. I'll show you another picture here at the top. This is figure 11. This is the ox herd holding the saw coverlet around his neck, aligns the oxen revolving on the threshing floor. In the tomb of Plah Hoptek, however, another representation of the saw sign is through provoking. Sign is thought provoking. I'm sorry, I said through. This sign is thought provoking. And that representation is no longer a traveling shepherd who is transporting his equipment on his shoulders, but a ox herd entirely naked, wearing the saw sign tightly round his neck. With one hand, he holds its two ends so that they evoke exactly the form of the hieroglyph. With the other hand, he raises a stick in order to keep in line the oxen treading out grain on the threshing floor. Under the torrid sun of the harvest season, this ox herd has no need of a blanket. Why then is the particular case does he wear the symbol Sa? Should it not be understood in the sense of protector of the nap, NAPE of the neck? But why protect the back of the neck so specifically? Here, various symbols guide us towards one fundamental idea, which shows the importance the ancients attached to the cerebral column. It also shows their general knowledge of the human body. Among the numerous jewels specifically represented on the sarcophagus or in the natural or mural paintings of the tomb, a variety of necklaces are to be found. Certain ones among them consist only of a few strung pearls tightly worn. These were named guardians of the neck, and also for what it is in the heart. The large Uslet, USEKH necklace, composed of broad rows of pearls. And this will be shown here at the top also. The other page. So this is figure 12. From left to right, the sign saw, the useless necklace, the falcon head, and the symbol of the heart. Is worn on the upper chest and ends in the back in two falcon heads, which most often then not bear on the nape of the neck. A pearl-tipped crescent, a symbol strangely reminiscent of the upside-down crescent above a oval, signs found inscribed on the hieroglyph or heart. The two falcon heads keep in place the counterweight called for living, which rests upon the last cervical and the first dorsal vertebrae. Indeed, in the pharaonic canon, a most important line marks the level of the base of the neck. In the ritual, this is also the spot at which the nectar gives life to the king when he offers the ankh behind the king's back. The sum total of these observations serves to show that the ancients attached enormous importance to this point of the body, which they must have considered as a vital note. Modern physiology indeed teaches us that the two roots of the inferior cardiac nerve that innervates the heart originates in the inferior cerebral ganglion and in the first dorset, the stellate ganglion, and is precisely at this spot that the pendulum for living rests. In man, however, there are three ganglions that innervates the heart: the inferior, the middle, and the superior, all spaced along the cerebral vertebrae of the spinal column. Thus, a meaning begins to emerge for the blanket saw, the protection carried on the nape of the neck, with the symbolic pearls as guardians of the neck and of the heart, with the pendant for living, the gift of life by the neter. All these representations imply a meaning that emphasizes by the phonetic symbol sa. We have seen that in human anatomy, three cerebral ganglions innervated the heart. In the dog, it is sufficient to strike the inferior ganglion alone in order to bring about cardiac arrest. This is going to be figure 13. And this is going to be the hunting dog wears a protective collar and seizes the antelope by the neck. It is therefore particularly interesting to observe that dogs in hunting scenes always wear a protective collar at that spot. With the symbology, we attain an opening to esotericism, to the realm of casual impulse. Things are no longer questioned as how, but rather as to why. Yet our Western scientific thinking has some obvious reasons to refuse to search for its causes. The purely cerebral means at its disposal do not allow it. Besides, entering the domain of the why of things would have been a matter of small importance to our scientists up to now, as their faith has been staunchly materialistic and mechanicalism. Their interest was entirely absorbed by the material sequence of phenomenon. At this time, however, science has been beaten back to the fundamental problem of gravitation. Cosmic energy, undetermined and non-polarized, will have to be called upon. This inevitably, the question will arise: why? Why? Because there exists no reasonable reason for a polarization of this cosmic energy, unless pure faith is accepted as a refuge. A superior form of intelligence will necessitate have to be summoned in order to hear this understanding. This faith, which sages have never ceased to offer to the mass of humanity, loses none of its spiritual value when replaced by infinite knowledge, the spatial intellectualism of the spatial intelligence of the intelligence of the heart. In both cases, the ultimate source remains inaccessible to mental grasp. Thus, it is only a phase of the explanation of consciousness that is at stake in our time, and not a ravishment, that is, into absolute consciousness. The sense of sensitivity or intelligence of the heart is a human being cosmic consciousness, just as the virtuality of the apple tree as a whole expresses the universality in its seed. This consciousness, specifically only through the human being, is the consciousness of nature in the present human state. It differs from psychological and analytical consciousness, just as the virtuality in the seed differs from the analytical vegetation of the being to which it gives form. The perception of things evokes our memory and provokes association of ideas. In the same way, though in a vaster and more universal order, the symbology aims to evoke a state of consciousness that will no longer be a relating of similar elements, as in the case with the play of memory, but a penetration into the essence of the symbol dash object itself. There are three possible forms of evocation. It is most exalted aspect. Evocation through the symbol is a state of fusion, which is called samadhi. Now, he says in the practice of yoga, attained by few mystics, it is ecstasy. Okay, we've got to go say that again. It is the most exalted aspect. The evocation through the symbol is a state of fusion, which is called samadhi. In the practice of yoga, attained by few mystics, it is ecstasy. The lower state of this evocation is psychic in nature and acts much more frequently than we are wont to believe, especially with unusual emotional individuals. The inventory state of evocation situates itself between those two. It is of superior mental character, meaning that it is a pure abstraction, yet it demands a mean term between the summons to the senses on the one hand and pure intuition on the other, before its concretization through the mind. This is precisely the key to a science expressed by symbology. It is the essence of pharaonic thinking. The concern is with living. In its practical aspect, living is possible only through function. The proposition can be made more accessible, that is, through the entities that mathematics and physics call imaginary magnitudes. The root of -1 is spoken of as an imaginary value. In the same way, the axis is imaginary, and the ether of yesterday's physicists is an imaginary entity within density. Entity without density, yet assumed to be more elastic than steel. Thus, a logic of reality that eludes the grasp of our senses is called imaginary. What is remarkable is that this logic of object is perfectly unimaginable. Yet we have the intellectual certainty of the existence of these entities, still only through the deduction from known facts into certainly ours. It is the hypothesis that situates these imaginary values in the equation of thought, thereby filling the gap the mind intelligence perceives but cannot objectify. Thus, the settlement or psychological intelligence allows for all possible combinations as long as each element in these associations is provided by a natural and tangible fact. Whenever a gap occurs in the logical combination, we attempt to attribute qualities to it, which, and according to the standards offered by tangible facts, should give rise to desired consequences. It can be said, for instance, that without exception, a grain of wheat will put forth wheat only, and a human spermination zoom will give, sorry, I said that wrong, spermatozoon will give a human being. Between these tangible extremes of the phenomenon, a ontological phase is situated. Its mysteriously moments will never actually be understood by our mind because the stages of this progressive transformation are guided by a vital logic. The latter is conditional by cosmic evidence and not merely by physical evidence, which can be scientifically controlled. In order to explain a process that we can truly understand only through our identification with the cosmic functions only on which this process depends, we have to resort to conjecture. As soon as we place ourselves in a mental neutral state without thought, the intuitive vision, a consciousness as yet unformulated into space and time, is evoked by the object or the phenomena taken as a symbol. This state allows us to be function, to be vital activity along with the phenomenon. It means that the vital activity function of the object or phenomenon must be felt and tested. In hierarchy symbolism, the aim no longer is to transcribe into the domain of the senses, but to put ourselves into a state that is magically identical with the symbol object, so as to become heavy with weight, color with color, burning with fire. This faculty depends on preparation and can be achieved to a greater or lesser degree of perfection. We can imagine gestures and states by thus transmuting what as observations show us about the symbol object. This is more easily understood through the imaginative imitation of a living being, as for example, when we imitate in the imagination the gestures, the expressions, and the accents of an interlocutor. If we succeed in living him in this fashion, we shall know him, because we will emotionally and mentally experience the impulse and intentions that force him to behave as he does. It is the function that we must always attempt to initiate by the imagination, the characteristics and the defining functions of the symbol object, so as to awaken the intuition that is to form the awareness of the symbol's nature. That is why symbols of utilitarian objects or figurations of organs will be easier to interpret than intellectual symbols. Thus, we see the hieroglyphic, the symbols glyph in Egypt, usually presented in a gesture that could be called principle in action. If the opening of the heart bestowed by the new mentality is not understood, the effect involved will be questioned. Quote, why take such pains to decipher a teaching so far removed from us? End quote. We would reply, quote, it helps to arrest our dangerous fall and to give us a means to ascend towards our superhuman aim, end quote. We must indeed understand that we must indeed understand that everything said in this way goes well beyond our usual understanding and concrete hidden vital laws. Thus, the latest discovery of the physics, the negative nucleus, the antiproton, was known and described long ago by the pharaonic sages under the symbol of the white crown, personified and speaking through the gestures and attributes. So what are you saying here? Which is a little brief thing. We just suddenly discovered this basically, I guess, in the 1930s and the 1940s, whatever, this particular area. That was known long ago in the pharaonic stages. So in other words, this is how far they were ahead or how far we have fell or descended, so to speak. Not fail, but have been kept from truth. Our physicists, however, will use this knowledge only as an instrument of mechanical value and not as an instrument of life. Key point. Once a path is taken, one must allow that path to lead to its destination. The aim of our endeavor is to orient our directive towards another road, a direct road leading man beyond his present state of human animality. This can be accomplished through a symbolic thinking that enables us to say what our constricted language cannot express. Should a naive rather than critical frame of mind make the effort to consider what the symbology could be, it will find a matter of understanding and expression more alive, simpler and easier than the mental form of thought, whose erudite complexity is in the end reserved for very few brains. Of the latter, incidentally, not all hear the strain unharmed. It is obvious that in order to practice this symbology, the orientation of the mental tally must be directly, first of all, by a specific education. Symbolists in general seem to hold a deep-rooted conviction that a thorough re-education of humanity is needed in our day. No kidding. This re-education, however, is not to be accomplished by a theoretical approach alone. Only the persistent repetition of these ideas is able to create a proprious ambience suggestive of the discriminating insights that, when finally awakened, will attract conceptions grounded in vital truth. Only in this manner does a elite form and progress in our humanity. This expanded consciousness will never come about solely by the effect of arguments or by the observations of the laws of logical concentration, be it in philosophy, geometry, or a so-called substitution symbolism. Profound progress in thinking will not come about by the demonstration of a new geometric theorem, for example, in what way an evolution assisted by showing the relationships of the golden section, which in fact is erroneously considered to be a number, to pentagon, and the development of the latter into a hexagram, as well as all the logical sequences of the regular Platonic solids. I know these things; as such, they still only represent mental satisfaction. It is more important to me to discover in the functions of phi or pi and of the pentagon, the functions that compel them to be what they are. It is more important to know why, through the spring equinox, the male mollusc becomes female. I can find essential joy in a lyric description of the bud burgeoning in the spring and in the animal call of the sexes. But it is more important to me to live with this rising of the sap, whose fire will fix the imponderable substance to be corporatified as bud, and to learn why this bud will blossom into a flower or leaf as a particular spot on the branch. It does not matter how well I succeed in living these incidents, you see. The main thing is the profound desire to awaken this superior state of consciousness, as this intense desire is in itself a transcending, closer to primitive instinct, closer to the divine by means of simplicity, a loftier humanity of the past was able to live the understanding of natural symbolism. Sages, knowing the law that commands our earth, transcribe the orient, the rising, by the curvature of a circle in the hour of our humanity spiritual decline. They divided the centers in two in order to make obgives that terminate in the flamboyant style. We see this in only a matter of style instead of reading. It is as a warning concerning vital law. Sages borrow their symbols from all domains that our senses perceive or our logic comprehends, including geometry. With such symbol, they express the inexpressible that animates things, makes them be born, lie, live, die, and be reborn on the endless thread, forming the knots we call living things. Symbolism remains a literist game as long as it is not ordered in symbology into a cultural going beyond the faculty of reasoning, a higher humanism. And that is the completion of chapter 4 tonight from Rene Schwaller. Interesting information here, the last part. We're talking about symbols here, basically ideas and symbols in chapter 4. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And we'll conclude the talk tonight with this particular work. So I wish you a good night. You take care, and we'll talk another day. Thank you.